As the alliance of nations that will be part of the battle of Gog and Magog seems to be gathering in the Middle East, Christians all over the world are wondering, who is the mysterious Gog who will attack Israel? And where in the world is Magog? But does this really matter to us? We'll find out why it matters a lot in this episode. It seems as if there are as many guesses about who Gog is as there are Christian scholars. Nearly every recent U.S. president has been a guess. Turkish President Erdogan and Russian President Putin are popular choices too, and of course, this only includes earthly leaders. Some consider that Gog might be a demonic power. Now, not only are U.S. presidents considered candidates for Gog, one actually improperly evoked Gog and Magog to start a war. U.S. President George Bush had this to say to the French leader Jacques Chirac prior to invading Iraq. Gog and Magog are at work in the Middle East. This confrontation is willed by God, who wants to use this conflict, that was the Iraq War, to erase his people's enemies before a new age begins. That is one big reason why proper understanding of who Gog and Magog is important. What a horrible misapplication of Scripture by former President Bush. Now, if we're going to uncover who Gog is and where in the world Magog is, it's necessary to know when the battle takes place. In this last episode, we discovered that the battle of Gog and Magog is the Battle of Armageddon. It does not happen prior to the 70th week of Daniel. We learned that it takes place at the end of the 70th week, contrary to popular opinion. If you haven't seen that important episode, click on the banner to see it now. Knowing when has to come before knowing who. And as always, we're going to answer these questions together. Our top 30 rated YouTube channel is a community. I'll get us started with my thoughts in this video, and you can add your thoughts in the comments. So if you've already seen that first episode, or just want to know about Gog's identity, let's move on to examining who he is. Gog is an individual, and Magog is his country. If the battle is Armageddon, as we proved in that previous episode, then Gog is either the Antichrist himself or a demonic being. He can't simply be a world leader who arises prior to the Antichrist. He's either the Antichrist or a demon. That is very, very helpful information and narrows down our search a lot. Now, who Gog is and where Magog is are very great mysteries, and they have puzzled scholars for generations. Let's start with Magog, the country, which might help us narrow down who Gog is. Magog is found in the Bible. It's the name of a grandson of Noah, for whom the nation was named. Now, these are the records of the generations of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, the sons who were born to them after the flood. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavon, Tubal, and Meshach, and Tiras. The Bible tells us their descendants were divided into nations according to the languages at the Tower of Babel. These are the families of the sons of Noah according to their genealogies by their nations, and out of these nations were separated on the earth after the flood. So Magog is one of the original 70 nations, each assigned to an angelic son of God, as we learned earlier in Deuteronomy 32:8, in this previous episode appearing on the banner. Again, if you haven't seen that one and want to see it now, just click on the banner. So Magog is one of the 70 nations that arose from the 3 sons of Noah. And most, if not all, the nations fighting in the Gog-Magog battle are from these 70 nations. Let's look at those nations now as listed in Ezekiel 38. Behold, I am against you, O Gog, prince of Rosh, Meshach, Tubal. I will turn you about and put hooks in your jaw, and I will bring you out, and all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them splendidly attired, a great company with buckler and shield, all of them wielding swords, Persia, Ethiopia, which is Cush, and put with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomer with all its troops, Beth Togarmah from the remote parts of the north. So all the nations listed as being involved in the Gog-Magog battle are in the list of nations in Genesis 10. All except for what many consider the nation of Russia, which is Rosh. This makes it very controversial. In fact, many doubt if it's even a nation. In the Old Testament, this word Rosh is found 600 times, and it always means chief or head. This would be the only instance in the entire Bible where the word Rosh was used as a proper name. Many of you are familiar with this word. It's found in the name of the holiday, Rosh Hashanah, which means head of the year. It's the Jewish New Year. And as we mentioned, the word is used in this way as head or chief 600 times in the Old Testament. Let's look at it in context. In Ezekiel 38, it says Gog, prince of Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal. Now, since Rosh means head or chief, many translations, like the King James, NIV, NLT, and ESV, translate it as if it is chief or head. The chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and they don't list Rosh as a nation at all. Rather, they consider it a title. And believe it or not, this is the majority opinion in Christian scholars today. Why is this important? The reason is because this is the nation that many think is Russia, Rosh, in the minds of many. If Rosh means head or chief, maybe Russia isn't part of this battle at all. A lot rides on this word. Let's see what some other older translations have to say. Now, many in our community know that I have an interest in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that occasionally the words found there are different than in modern translations. However, the word Rosh appears in the Dead Sea Scrolls. But not all the letters are present. It's kind of incomplete. So the Dead Sea Scrolls aren't much help. What about the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament? The Septuagint was translated around 200 BC. And guess what? The word Rosh, which is a Hebrew word, is translated in the Greek as the name of a nation, not as chief. As of 200 BC, the Septuagint Hebrew translators considered Rosh a nation, not a title. So I consider the proper translation of Rosh a tie. I can't really tell if it's supposed to be Russia or just a reference to chief prince. Considering that Rosh is not a nation from among the 70 nations, however, I favor the idea that the Gog-Magog battle doesn't include Russia, but that might be mistaken. None of us should rule out Russia completely or assume that Russia is in completely. We shouldn't be adamant that Russia is part or not part of the coalition. I don't think there's enough evidence to tell for sure. So we have either 8 or 9 nations involved in the invasion of Israel. Where are they? Cush is widely accepted as the area of Sudan and Ethiopia. Put is considered Libya. And of course, Persia is Iran. But that leaves all the more northern nations as somewhat mysterious. Where these nations are depends on how one interprets the names of the nations. Do they refer to the landmass or the ground that the nation originally occupied at the time of the prophet Ezekiel? Or, second, do they refer to the people that lived on that land? The first theory would say Magog is where Magog originally was located at the time of Ezekiel. The second theory would say Magog is anywhere the Magog people migrated to. There is a great deal of debate about which theory is correct. Now, if the first theory is correct, that Ezekiel 38 refers to the original landmass of Magog in the days of Ezekiel, then Magog is the region right where it used to be, and we'll discuss where that might be in a minute. If it's the second theory, well, frankly, Magog could be anywhere, because the people living on that landmass have migrated and remigrated all over the planet. I have seen Magog suggested as being Germany, Russia, and even the USA for this reason. So this second method, what I term the migration method, is arduous, difficult, and as we see, leads to just about any result that the scholar desires. The first problem is that migration and intermarriage didn't take place in one direction during the past 2,500 years, from one location to another. Rather, the people who originally inhabited Magog may have migrated and remigrated to numerous other countries. They are scattered to the winds of time. Second, modern genetic tests cast serious doubt on this theory too. One USA presidential candidate claimed to be descended from American Indians, and her genetic test showed a positive correlation, but of only 1%. This is the type of correlation we should expect to find for migrated Magog populations also. The people groups that existed at the time of Ezekiel don't really exist today. Let me say that again, because it is both controversial but also important. The people groups that existed at the time of Ezekiel don't really exist anymore. There are no Magog people. Third, it is interesting that this migration theory is generally only applied to Magog. The other nations of the invasion force are thought to be in their original locations. Cush is thought to be Sudan and Ethiopia, Persia is thought to be Iran, and put stays put, so to speak. Why only use the migration method for one nation, Magog? That's a big question, and we're going to answer it shortly. So this methodology, the migration method, is not reliable in determining where Magog is today. Instead, we will use the historic method. We'll try and determine where the landmass that was Magog was back in the days of Ezekiel. In order to do that, let's look at the passage in context. Gog of the land of Magog, prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. So this character Gog is from Magog and also rules the other territories, Meshech and Tubal, and potentially Rosh if that is a nation rather than a title. And this is important. Gog is not from Rosh. If it is a nation, and Rosh is Russia, Gog is not from there, but rules it. So many people assume Gog is a Russian, but as you can see from the passage, unless Magog is also Russia, that is impossible. And that might make Putin cry. But it is likely that Magog and Meshech and Tubal are all close together since Gog rules them all. So that is a clue to this mystery also. When we find Meshech and Tubal, Magog should be close behind. So let's begin our investigation. The land of Magog is thought by most scholars to be the land of Gog. But where does this name Gog come from? Starting with 19th century Bible scholar Frank Delitzsch, it has been possibly associated with a king who ruled Lydia or Western Turkey named Gugu. Unusual name. So maybe it is Western Turkey. Numerous Bible dictionaries and commentaries all agree. The Zondervan, IVP, New Ungers, the Holman, the Catholic, the New Moody, all of them place Magog in Western Turkey. Pliny the Elder, a 1st century Roman writer, placed it at the border of Turkey and modern-day Syria, as did Maimonides, a Jewish sage. In referring to these writers, Sir Walter Raleigh specifically called this the Magog Ezekiel referred to. The Scythians, in old times, coming out of the northeast, wasted the better part of Asia Minor and possessed Coele-Syria, which the Syrians called Magog, and to this Magog, Ezekiel had reference. All these academic and historical references point to Turkey. Yet, despite this overwhelming evidence that Magog is Western Turkey, most Bible scholars indicate it's Russia. Why? The reason is C.I. Scofield's 1909 reference Bible, which also promoted the pre-tribulation rapture position. So there is a link between those who favored the pre-trib and a Russian Gog, not because of a scriptural link, but because of this older reference Bible that promoted both ideas. So why did Scofield suggest that Magog was Russia? He made this link because of the writing of Flavius Josephus, the famous 1st century Jewish writer who identified Magog with the Scythians, and Scofield felt that the Scythians migrated to Russia. Please notice, this relies on the false migration theory. However, modern historians believe that the word Scythians was a catch-all term, sort of like using Native Americans, for those living in Asia Minor or Turkey. And even if some of these tribes did migrate north, which probably some did, only a few did. Equating Magog with all Scythians is like equating the single Native American tribe, the Mohicans, who lived in New York, with all Native Americans. It doesn't make sense. But because of the Scofield Bible and its link to the popular pre-tribulation rapture theory, the idea has stuck in the minds of many, many, many Bible scholars to this day. But I think the majority of modern Bible experts say Magog is in Western Turkey. So what about Meshach and Tubal? A minute ago we mentioned that most Bible atlases and commentaries equate Magog with Western Turkey. An even longer list of atlases equate Meshach and Tubal with Turkey as well, including Oxford, Holman, IVP, Zondervan, etc. In fact, there is very little controversy about this. Nearly all Bible experts agree that Meshach and Tubal were located in modern Turkey, and this reinforces the idea that Magog was in Turkey, since Gog is the prince of these regions also. The same can be said about the nations of Gomer and Togarmah. Nearly every Bible expert places these nations in Turkey or the area just north of Turkey around the Black Sea. In regard to Togarmah, Ezekiel calls this area the uttermost parts of the north. Gomer with all its troops, Beth Togarmah from the remote parts of the north. This casts doubt on whether Rosh even refers to Russia at all. If Togarmah is the uttermost parts of the north and it's in Turkey, why would Russia or Rosh be even further north? It's not impossible, but it sure seems unlikely. Now these nations surface again in Isaiah in an end-time context as well. I will set a sign among them, and I will send survivors from them to the nations, Tarshish, Put, Lud, Meshach, Tubal, and Yavon, to the distant coastlands that have never heard my fame or seen my glory, and they will declare my glory among the nations, and they shall bring all your brethren from all the nations as a grain offering to the Lord on horses, in chariots, in litters, on mules, and on camels, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, says the Lord. We see the same nations, Put, Meshach, and Tubal, and Lud is another name for Lydia, which we think might be Magog. Also notice this passage is the regathering of Israel, scattered to the nations. They are brought back on horses, chariots, and litters, on mules and camels. In my opinion, it is a great misunderstanding that the regathering of Israel after the Lord's return is by angels, supernatural means. That is not what I see as being correct. Here is where it is found in prophecy, and it is by natural means, on horses and camels. If you have thought that the gathering is by angels, I think rather that is the rapture. The gathering is of elect Christians. Why are Israelites in those nations to be regathered? Because they are likely the captives taken in the invasion and placed in concentration camps. This regathering of captives of Israel reinforces that these places are the Antichrist nations. So now we've assembled a list of nations involved in this invasion: Turkey, Iran, Libya, Sudan, most likely a few of the Stan nations like Afghanistan or Kazakhstan, and maybe Russia. Knowing this, it's time to begin to identify Gog. Gog is from Magog, so he is almost assuredly from Turkey. And in our last episode, we narrowed down the timing of this invasion of Israel to be at the end of the 70th week. That is, it's Armageddon. This means that Gog, the leader of Armageddon, is either the Antichrist himself or a demon who possesses the Antichrist. And we know from Revelation that the throne of Satan is in Pergamum. Pergamum, which is in Turkey. So this fits perfectly with what we are learning here. Okay, so why would Gog be a demon and not a man? Where does that theory that some might call crazy come from? Well, in the book of Daniel, we learn that the nations have a demonic prince or ruler assigned to them. The archangel Michael restrains the princes of Persia and Greece, better known as Yavon, in Daniel 10. So Gog is a prince. People think then possibly he could be such a demonic power or prince. The Hebrew word used for prince in Daniel, however, is not the same Hebrew word used in Ezekiel. In Daniel, the word is sar. In Ezekiel, God calls it anasi. So the fact that different words are used casts some doubt on this theory. So, although Marvel Comics and GOG.com both cast Gog as a demon, what sort of biblical evidence is there? The word Gog, or the name Gog, is found in the Septuagint translation of Amos. Thus the Lord showed me, and behold, a swarm of locusts were coming, and behold, one of the young, devastating locusts was Gog, the king. This associates Gog with the invasion of locusts in the book of Joel, chapter 2, which most think are Antichrist forces. Although some associate locusts with demons, as of at the fifth trumpet. Another possible connection is with the Old Testament character with a similar name, Og, without the G, O-G, found in the book of Numbers. Og was a giant and the king of Bashan, which is the Golan Heights today. In Deuteronomy, we learn this: for only Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. It is in Rabbah of the sons of Ammon. Its length was 9 cubits, and its width 4 cubits by an ordinary cubit. The Rephaim were giants like the Nephilim. A 9-cubit bed was probably 12 to 14 feet long. In Ezekiel 39:18, we see Gog associated with this same region, Bashan. His army is compared to fatlings of Bashan when he is eaten by the birds. Bulls of Bashan, this same region, encircled the Lord Jesus at his crucifixion, as described in Psalm 22. So there is some connection between Og and Gog beyond the similar names, and some connection with the supernatural, but it is all very, very vague and not conclusive at all. Could Gog be the name of the demon that possesses and empowers the Antichrist? Yes, it is entirely possible. But it is more likely that Gog is a man, that he is the Antichrist. Now let's return to our thumbnail for this video. On it we pictured 3 men, Trump, Putin, and Erdogan. Trump and Putin aren't from Turkey, so now we know that this seems to eliminate them from consideration of being Gog. Erdogan is from Turkey, but Daniel 11:21 seems to indicate that the Antichrist will not be a current world leader. In his place, a despicable person will arise on whom the honor of kingship has not been conferred. Daniel 11:21. Notice, when this man arises, he is not a leader. Kingship won't have been conferred upon him, and Erdogan is a leader. So our best guess, and it's only a guess, is that Gog is a shadowy person, unknown to the world at large right now. And he is the Antichrist. Which brings up the most common question about Gog. Why is Gog buried? But the beast is thrown alive into the lake of fire. Doesn't this preclude Gog from being the Antichrist? This is a puzzling question, but it has a very simple answer. In this previous popular video, we discussed how the beast of Revelation has 3 natures. It is a man, the Antichrist. It is a kingdom or a nation at the same time. And third, it is a demon who possesses the man, the Antichrist. Watch this previous video to learn more about how Scripture supports this 3-part nature of the beast. In Daniel 7, we see the body of the beast is burned. This is the burning of the kingdom portion of the beast when Jesus and his angels throw fire and brimstone upon it. In Ezekiel 39, we see how Gog, the human portion, is buried. And in Revelation 19, the demon portion of the beast is thrown into the lake of fire. So all 3 portions of the beast are disposed of in different ways. This is completely consistent with the 3-part nature. Looking at Isaiah 14 brings this into perspective as well. Isaiah 14 is a taunt that the Israelites will take up against someone known as the king of Babylon when God finally gives them their rest from their persecution, which is at the end of the 70th week of Daniel. Isaiah 14 is a highly confusing passage which has been ascribed to Satan by most scholars, but frankly, that just doesn't seem possible for all of it to be about Satan. Those who see you will gaze at you. They will ponder over you, saying, "Is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook the kingdoms, who made the world like a wilderness, and who overthrew its cities, who did not allow his prisoners to go home?" So notice, it is a man. And this man is buried. Your pomp and the music of your harps have been brought down to Sheol, which is the grave. Maggots are spread out as your bed beneath you, and worms are your covering. So this passage can't just be about Satan, because it calls this individual a man who is buried. Yet it can't just be about a human either. How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the earth. Isaiah 14:12. This can only be a fallen angel or Satan. It's a man and a fallen spirit being. To me, that sounds like the beast who has a three-part nature: man, demon, and kingdom. Yes, I know that's confusing, but it's all that makes sense to me. So today we learn Magog is Turkey, or at least the area of the Middle East north of Israel, including Syria and Turkey. And we learned that our best guess is Gog is the Antichrist, a man, but also a man that is possessed by a demonic spirit who is cast down from heaven. So it's both and, in my best opinion. Now, let's get to the question of why this is important to you, why it matters to you. Knowing where the Antichrist will come from keeps you from being deceived. In today's Christian culture, anyone and everyone is a fair game to be the Antichrist, from U.S. presidents to popes to Italians to Germans to Asians. But based on this study, we can see that the most likely choice, not the only choice, but the most likely choice, is a Middle Eastern man who is not currently a world leader. In our next episode on the Middle Eastern prophecy, we'll discuss the Psalm 83 war and the controversy about whether it's past or future and when in the future. And I will let you know our view on this war is unique. If you want to keep watching, just click right here. If it hasn't been published yet, another appropriate video will appear until it is. This is Nelson, and I'll see you there.